Welcome, Better Humans. Colin here, your host. And I'm writing a book, The Better Human book. I'm writing a bunch of books, actually. Whatever, it's not that exciting. Everybody can write a book. You can literally publish an article to Kindle in like 5 minutes. You could literally write an article or a bunch of gibberish in a Google Doc, export it as a doc file, upload it to Kindle Publishing, and publish it. So I'm not saying I'm writing a book because I think it's some massive virtue signal. I've actually written a bunch of books. Most of them don't sell. I really enjoy writing, but more importantly, I enjoy educating. And a book is another form to do that. Book's actually the most condensed form of knowledge you can find. I hadn't really thought about that. There's a book I'm reading. I think it's by Stephen Kohler. I forget what it's called, but he makes a point in there that there is no other content medium other than books that are as heavily researched, edited, focused, and condensed. And also it's no other way to get somebody else's time as much invested in a piece of content. So for example, it might take a book a year and hundreds of hours, maybe thousands of hours of research and editing and proofing and whatever. Whereas an article, if they're a good journalist, they might spend a month thinking about a topic, interviewing people, etc. That makes for a good article. A book is that to like the 10x degree. And that was a really interesting way to think about books because podcasts are great. They go in depth. Videos can be great. The average video on YouTube is like 10 minutes, but there's only so much you get out of that, right? There's only so much you get out of watching a 7-minute TED Talk. There's only so much you get out of even a pretty long article. Books are just another dimension of depth that you can't really get anywhere else. And it's kind of reinvigorated my desire to keep putting books out. It's just amazing. I'm going to read through chapter 1 a little bit, some of the notes I have. I haven't edited this. This is literally draft 1, and it's going to be rewritten multiple times because it's applicable to the show. It's applicable to you. You're here, you're listening, you want to be a better human, you want to think better. You tune in for something related to being better. And the first chapter is about that. It's your mind is the root of everything. And I might change its title, but let's get into it. The greatest discovery of my generation is that human beings can alter their lives by altering their attitudes of mind. William James, US psychologist. William James was early 1900s. I believe he died in like the 60s or 70s. This isn't that long ago that people started realizing that they could change their reality and they could consciously choose to manifest things in the real world and to accomplish things based on how they thought. That's why you see so many people throughout history, whether it was like Napoleon or Genghis Khan or any of these individuals, they were usually outliers and they just did things because they were designed that way for whatever reason, a combination of nature and nurture. They were mega outliers. It wasn't until like the last 100 years where psychologists and you could even say philosophers and just people and thinkers realized that, wow, I can actually change my own thoughts. I can actually change how I feel about things. I can change how I respond to things. I can change what results I get, etc. Now, the Stoics were talking about this back in the day, but they had a small audience. Nowadays, I'm sure the Stoics probably couldn't have fathomed that potentially a billion humans could learn and read and understand Stoicism. And it's definitely not a billion. I mean, it's probably like in the millions. Stoicism has had a resurgence in recent years because it's probably the best, most practical philosophy for dealing with everyday modern life. But this is a recent phenomenon. Here's some notes I got. Humanity has made great strides in understanding ourselves, but we have a long way to go. Then you have the problem of human emotion and biology and the fact that we can know exactly what to do, and then we'll get emotional and forget that and just do something else entirely. So knowing what we should or shouldn't do does not always translate to actually doing or not doing. We all know that. Especially when we're looking back in retrospect thinking like, wow, how dumb was I? Or why did I do that? The reality is most people downright suck at doing things that they know they should or shouldn't do. We know we should eat this, not eat that. Last night, for example, myself, I know that I shouldn't have been eating that dark chocolate at 9 p.m. And then I kept waking up hungry and I'd eat more of it. And then I would get thirsty and I had to go to the bathroom like 6 times. Like, what am I doing? Now, when I actually analyze what I did last night, I literally woke up at least 5 times to go to the bathroom and to snack. What am I doing? I value sleep. Like, that's not okay. That's not normal. So I know that I shouldn't be doing that. I know that I shouldn't be having chocolate later in the day because it's going to mess up my sleep. I know that I probably shouldn't be drinking a bunch of water towards the end of the day because it's going to be messing up my sleep. But in the moment, it's very easy to simply say, I don't care. Do it. We have mountains of data, countless books, millions of words every single day that come out that add to our collective understanding of how to be a better human, of how to act better, think better, better habits, better this, etc. But does that translate into billions of humans living better lives? Well, there's a few reasons that doesn't happen. And even those that are coming out with the information, like I said, that doesn't mean they're paragons of virtue. And they struggle with the same things we all struggle with because we're biological creatures, we're humans. And then to further compound the disconnect is most people in the modern world are distracted, depressed, medicated, and chasing external pleasures in an attempt to fill the ever-growing existential void in their chest. Most people aren't or don't care to become aware of the power of their mind, because doing so is not the path of least resistance. Taking control of your mind, taking responsibility, taking agency for your actions, that's hard. It's pretty much the hardest thing to do. It's also the most fruitful, but it's the hardest thing to do. It requires more energy, more calorie expenditure. And if you look at human biology and nature, there's a reason people don't want to think too hard, because you're not supposed to. Your biology still believes it's living in an energy scarce, a calorie scarce environment, where if you think too hard and burn up a bunch of calories thinking, you may not survive. That's biology. That's human nature. Now, of course, we live in a modern environment where calories are everywhere. So we should actually think really freaking hard, and we should walk everywhere, and we should move all the time. The reality is, though, most people, the 99%, are going to default to the status quo. Their status quo is whatever's around them, friends and family, and how they were raised. Maybe their community and maybe their culture. They all have influences. But generally, people follow the lives of the people around them, and now with social media, of the people that they look up to and want to emulate. So they end up chasing the same career paths. They want to become doctors and lawyers and engineers because they think they can make money, and they think money is happiness. And then they go into professions they don't like, and they study things they're not really interested in. And then they have midlife crises, and it's like, oh. And then in middle age, they tend to say, why do I care so much about other people? I'm going to do what I want to do. Hopefully it's not too late. Hopefully they're not overweight. Hopefully they haven't died from cancer, heart disease, or any of these other modern diseases of abundance. On the flip side, the 1%. I've been saying this for a long time because I've been observing human nature. I've been an entrepreneur since I was 21. I've been watching friends and family do various things, have various levels of success and not success, or just average or whatever. And that's fine. But some people want more. From outside, watch how they sabotage themselves, or they don't do this, or they know what they should do and they don't follow their own advice, or they don't follow the advice that I give them. They ask me for advice and they don't follow it. And so I've been thinking about this a lot. Why do some people kind of make it happen and some don't? I believe it's not the only thing, but one of the fundamental distinctions of why the 1% are the 1% is because the 1% take a proactive approach and a responsibility and an ownership of agency. And then they do things, and they make the connection that if I do things and I learn, and I do things and I learn, what I call the success loop. You basically are learning by doing, and then you continually evolve. If I do that, I'll get results. And I think there's some kind of tipping point. I think most people never reach this tipping point where they can actually do that for various reasons. And unfortunately, the 1% of the 1% for a reason. They're the outliers. Now you can change this. You can go from whatever and have some midlife breakdown and then have an epiphany and then become the 1%. Or you could just commit and really decide and do it. And it's very possible. It's just not likely, unfortunately. And I used to think, I don't think anymore, so I will tell you that money and success and fame and all these things is not the meaning of life. It's not the secret of happiness. For a lot of people, it's not even the path to happiness. I'm not placing a value judgment on this. I'm not saying you're less than if you don't want to do that. In fact, you want to know who I'm envious of? I'm envious of the people that don't care about any of it. And I always try to not care. Now, I'm not great at not caring. I've kind of gotten the social media caring out of my system, but I still sometimes feel like, oh, it'd be great if I had a huge audience or whatever. And I compare myself to other people, but I don't need that. I don't need likes and comments and this and that. I don't need to have millions of people that follow me and whatever. That's not the measure of my life. Although in some way, the flip side is the measure of my life is how many people can I help and impact. And that does matter to me. But you know what I'm saying? I envy the person that doesn't give a shit about anybody else or their opinions. And I don't mean they don't care about people, but it's just completely detached from the good opinions of other people. I envy that person. I even envy the monk that can just sit around and do nothing all day. It's not for me. I don't want to do that at all. But in a way, I envy it and I respect it. So the 1% are people that choose to take control of their life. There's no in between. There's no you kind of take a little bit of control, you do some things, whatever. It's like a very polar, stark contrast where the average person that follows the status quo, that's what they do, whatever, that's great. And then the people that aren't like that are on the other end of the spectrum completely, where they challenge everything. They're skeptical of everything. They make all their own decisions. They might think about what people think, but that doesn't really motivate them or drive them. So this is kind of the intro to chapter 1. Your mind is the root of everything.